Everyone, it is November 20th, 2023, 7 p.m. here at the City Council Chambers for the City Council meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and entertain the roll call, please.
Beaufore.
Here.
Birgen.
Here I am.
Myers.
Here.
Rathe.
Here.
Schneider.
Here.
And Drenkow will be absent, and Kangas will be here shortly.
Excellent, thank you. Move into item C, Pledge of Allegiance, please. Join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Brings us to the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda is presented. Second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Birgen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Section E is the approval of the minutes. Entertain a motion.
I will move we approve the November 6th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Meyers. Council discussion, if any. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Under public hearing, item number 1, this is the date, time, and place for a public hearing on the second reading of Ordinance 1134, amending Chapter 100 zoning, Section 100.6A.03, R1A dimensional requirements, Section 100.7.03, R2 dimensional requirements, Section 100.8.03, R3 required provisions, and Section 100.9.03 dimensional requirements. Mayor and City Council will entertain any comments. After all comments, the hearing will be declared closed and the following action will be considered. Have we received any written or oral comments, Carla?
We have not, Your Honor.
All right. Any comments from anybody that has joined us this evening? Seeing nobody rise, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve second reading of ordinance 1134, amending chapter 100 zoning, sections 100.6A.03, R1A dimensional requirements, section 100.7.03, R2 dimensional requirements, section 100.8.03, R3 required provisions, and section 100.9.03 dimensional requirements.
Second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Beaufore. Council discussion, if any. Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Vote of 6-0 and 1 absent. The second reading of ordinance 1134 is approved. Second item under public hearing is, this is the date, time, and place for a public hearing on the second reading of ordinance 1136, adopting the city code of the City of Waverly, Iowa. Any written or oral comments this evening, Carla?
I have none, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any comments from anyone that has joined us this evening? Seeing nobody approaching, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I would move approval of the second reading of ordinance 1136, adopting the city code of the City of Waverly, Iowa.
Second.
Motion by Kangas, second by Rathe. Council discussion. Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Birgen.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Vote of 6-0 and 1 absent. The second reading of ordinance 1136 is approved. Moves us to section G, public comments for items not on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual member. Are there any public comments this evening? Seeing nobody rise, we'll move forward to the consent calendar in section H. Following items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Item 1 is a pay request from Studio Mealy for the Waverly Public Library addition and renovation for $13,013.83. Item 2 is a pay request from Construction Materials Testing, CMT of Des Moines, Iowa for the Airport Taxiway Connector 2022 for the amount of $4,261. Item 3 is a pay request from Grider Construction Incorporated for the Water Pollution Control Facility improvements for $241,568.85. Item 4 is a pay request from McClure Engineering for the Waverly Reconstruct South T Hangar Taxi Lane CA Services for $13,268.11. Item 5 is a pay request from McClure Engineering for Waverly Municipal Airport Construct Taxiway Connector, Construction Management, Administration, and Observation Services for $16,974.62. Item 6 is a pay request from Midwest Concrete for the Waverly Municipal Airport Reconstruct South T Hangar Taxi Lane for $25,797.62. Item 7 is a pay request from Wicks Construction Incorporated for the Waverly Municipal Airport Construct Taxiway Connector for $227,140.17. And item 8 is the cash disbursements for October of 2023. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar as read by the mayor. Second.
Motion by Rathe, second by Beaufore. Council discussion, if any. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries on the consent calendar. Brings us to regular business. Item 1, Resolution 23-161, approving a water tower access policy. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 23-161, a resolution approving a water tower access policy.
Second.
Motion by Meyers, second by Rathe. Council or staff discussion?
So as I read this, it looks like a lot of the policy is protecting us from kind of liability if people are up there and when they shouldn't be. I seem to remember in our most recent discussion about the water tower and some of the wear and tear on it, that some of the problems with the water tower is people kind of drilling holes as they're attaching antennas. Does this address that at all?
Yes, this gives me some grounds to basically give approval to this work as well.
Okay.
That's an issue we've had going for a while now, is making contact with the correct people that are doing the work, so now we can actually observe it or see what they're actually doing.
Okay, so this basically says before anyone goes up, they have to tell you and get permission, so you can like keep an eye on and make sure they're not cutting holes in the water tower stuff.
Correct.
Okay.
And this also gives us the grounds to establish the escrow accounts if there are some work, you know, with the West Water Tower coming up.
Anything further? Hearing none, roll call Carla.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Vote of 6-0 and 1 absent, Resolution 23-161 is approved. Item number 2 is Resolution 23-163, approving a Laserfish cloud subscription agreement between the City of Waverly and Oakland Corporation for 5 business full users. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of Resolution 23-163, a resolution approving a Laserfish cloud subscription agreement between the City of Waverly and Oakland Corporation of Story City, Iowa, for 5 business full users at $4,150 per year, and a block of time for 25 hours of professional services at $3,500 for a total of $7,650.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Rathe. Council discussion or staff?
So basically, we have 2 servers now, and those are physical, and we're moving that to the cloud.
Yep.
Explain the 5 users, I guess, on that.
So we have so many licenses to allow so many people to be using it at one time.
So there's 5 logins.
There is a
Gotcha.
lock on it. And so this will allow us to, again, as you said, go to the cloud.
Gotcha.
These servers are expensive. They run about $20,000 a piece. They are out of date. They are out of compliance, and we need to get rid of them. So instead of buying new servers, we will go to the cloud. We'll have unlimited access, so to speak, for storage. And it'll be a lot better going forward, as this is our preferred method for storage electronically now.
And the time that we're buying, that's going to be the, getting them to transition from our current to.
Yep.
Okay.
And the physical servers, reinvesting and purchasing, those are going to be obsolete at some point too, so.
Absolutely.
Cloud is the way, so. All right, hearing nothing further, roll call Carla.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Vote is 6-0 and 1 absent, Resolution 23-163 is approved. Item 3, Resolution 23-164, approving a plat of survey for parcel DD, parcel EE, and parcel FF for lots 6, 7, and 8 in the Waverly Industrial Plaza addition to Waverly, Iowa. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 23-164, a resolution approving a plat of survey for parcel DD, parcel EE, and parcel FF for lots 6, 7, and 8 in the Waverly Industrial Plaza addition to Waverly, Iowa, for Graining Knights 2 LLC of Waverly, Iowa.
Second.
Motion by Meyers, second by Kangas. Council discussion?
I was just a little confused by the maps. Could somebody explain what the actual changes are?
So if you look at the plat survey page, there's lot 6, 7, and 8, which is where GMT is in the middle lot, and on each side there's empty lots. But they've kind of moved over a little bit into that south part, so they want to have a lot that's available to be sold, but if they find a buyer. Otherwise, you have to wait and do the platting after the fact and somebody's interested. So they want to keep those 3 lots. The EE will be the GMT building, and then FF and DD can be sold to other businesses.
So it looks like the line between parcel EE and FF is just moved barely any, just a little bit, I'm sure, while the one on the south end of parcel EE is a more noticeable change.
And I'm not sure why they ended up that way, but it's because somebody else did the platting than the first person. And a lot of times they'll maybe make some corrections.
Well, I suspect it has to do with perpendicular to the road versus straight east-west line, which it was before.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That could be.
Because the aerial on there, I think it might have to do with the parking lot.
On the south side?
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's for the one on the south side.
All right.
Planning and zoning liked it.
Yep. Hearing nothing further, roll call, Carla.
Myers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Vote 6-0 and 1 absent, resolution 23-164 is approved. Item 4, resolution 23-165, accepting the Harlington Cemetery restoration. Phase number 5 is complete and approving pay estimate number 1 in the amount of $2,200 is the final payment to Kurt Eisinger, Monument Restoration LLC of Jefferson City, Missouri. Entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept Resolution 23-165, a resolution accepting the Harlington Cemetery Restoration Phase Number 5 is complete and approving pay estimate number 1 in the amount of $2,200 as the final payment to Kurt Heisinger, Monument Restoration LLC of Jefferson City, Missouri.
Second?
Motion by Schneider, second by Birgen. Council discussion, if any.
I just had a quick question. Since this was a different firm than we've used in the past, were you pleased with the results?
At the end, yes. Took a little while longer to get there than what we had originally planned. But, yep, the final 22 that we are paying for, we're pleased with those.
Picture looked good, so it takes about $2,000 in gas to get to Jefferson City, Missouri.
Hearing nothing further, roll call, Carla.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Vote of 6-0 and 1 absent, resolution 23-165 is approved. Item 5 is the second reading of ordinance 1133, amending chapter 74 waterworks, section 74.12 and 74.3, chapter 75 wastewater facilities, section 75.6, and chapter 23 municipal infractions, section 23.05 of Waverly Municipal Code of Ordinances. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the second reading of ordinance 1133, amending chapter 74 waterworks, sections 74.12 and 74.30, chapter 75 wastewater facilities, section 75.6, and chapter 23 municipal infractions, section 23.05 of the Waverly Municipal Code of Ordinances.
Second?
Motion by Rathe, second by Birgen. Council discussion. Hearing nothing further, roll call, Carla.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Vote of 6-0 and 1 absent, the second reading of ordinance 1133 is approved. Brings us to item 6, the second reading of ordinance 1135, amending chapter 69, solid waste, section 69.2, 69.3, 69.4, and 69.6 of the City of Waverly Municipal Code of Ordinances. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of the second reading of ordinance 1135, an ordinance amending chapter 69, solid waste, section 69.2, 69.3, 69.4, and 69.6 of the City of Waverly Municipal Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Rathe. Council discussion.
So I wanted to point out section 69.6 hazardous material disposal. Item number 6 is animal carcasses. So we had a little bit of a discussion after the meeting last time. Can you explain why animal carcasses are in here and which animal carcasses? I mean, I'll be honest, I caught a mouse in my kitchen a couple weeks ago and I threw it away in my garbage, and I hope I don't get in trouble for throwing mice away.
Oh, you're
This
the,
hasn't been passed yet, so you're okay.
Yeah, okay.
But don't do it in a couple weeks.
The best explanation I can come up with, we've had a request to get rid of deer carcasses or other hunting type of animals. And when I contacted the landfill, they will accept them down there. They have a special area that they take them to because they do not want them out in the general where the other trash is dumped, because whenever they spread them out, if they see bones or anything like that, it might cause an issue, concern.
So I suppose there's kind of a level of how large an animal we're talking about. So if I have a squirrel that gets run over in the street outside my house, I'm probably okay putting it in the garbage. But if I have a raccoon that dies in my yard, I should probably call public waste to come pick it up.
Yeah, correct.
All right. Hearing nothing further, roll call, Carla.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Vote of 6-0 and 1 absent, second reading of ordinance 1135 is approved. Item 7 is resolution 23-166, authorizing the annual harvesting of Canadian geese within the Waverly city limits. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of resolution 23-166, a resolution authorizing the annual harvesting of Canadian geese within the Waverly city limits.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Rathe. Council discussion.
I just had a question, and forgive me if it's in here and I couldn't find it, but are there any stipulations, aside from it saying no hunting shall take place within 200 yards of a roadway or inhabited structure, any other stipulations in terms of trying to make sure that this stays safe? Like, do they have to wear blaze orange or anything like that?
It's just following hunting regulations of the state of Iowa. But I definitely wasn't putting all the regulations on here. These are just kind of, excuse me, I wanted to make sure that the 200 yards by an inhabited structure, that was one of the highlights for it. But otherwise, yeah, they would have to follow all other Iowa regulations.
And this must be on private property with the permission of the owner. There's no public hunting grounds in Waverly.
correct.
Correct. We are not allowing any on public grounds. This is just for private property. And it's mostly just so that, we can be notified that folks are allowing people to hunt geese on their land. And that's the other thing too, it's just for geese.
And so where's the map that shows where people can do this? Or is it any private property as long as it follows the stipulations?
So any private property, as long as it would follow, have enough area, so there's no map. There is, excuse me, if the owner wants to allow it, that's where they would sign off on this letter. And then myself, James, and Rich would sign off on it as well, just so that we're notified that they're allowing that in case the police department gets any phone calls of shots fired or those kind of things.
So how much of a problem has this been? I mean, with people shooting, hunting where they shouldn't be or not following regulations? And it looks like one of the seasons has been going on already,
Correct.
was already done.
And I'll let Rich answer if it's been a problem or not. I don't believe that it has, over the years or this year. What it more so is people calling and asking for information as to where they can hunt. And I wouldn't say that we regulated it before, but we kind of took that extra step previously and contacted landowners and said, hey, would it be okay if hunters called you and let you, we're not doing that anymore. They need to contact the landowners and get their permission.
We
I
did
think-
provide a map of years
I was
prior.
gonna
That's
say, it
also
looks
when
like
we
it
owned
was.
property though west of the city that was being used for that. So when we had an interest from the city standpoint, we did provide a map. As it was a lot more prevalent. I don't see it as prevalent now as it used to be. And since we don't have any property involved in this, we've not went out and solicited, asking. Usually they'll come to us, they want to make sure it's legitimate, but we just didn't go the route of calling everybody with vacant property
Right.
to see if they'd allow it. I think years ago it was a little easier. There's been a lot of ownership changes, and it's just been hard to kind of keep up with who will and won't. So we just did not go through the effort to call everybody to let them know.
And some
And
of
does
those
it help?
What's that?
Does it work? As well as putting up the little fence along Coleman Park
I
that
don't
seems to fool the geese?
know how much of a dent it's making. It seems like there's
If we could
more
just
every
use
year.
a snow fence on everything, that'd be great.
I don't know if it makes much of a
Yeah,
dent.
this
or
is
not.
like taking
We
a-
don't get reports for how many are harvested or anything like
Right.
that.
Like
It's,
taking a cup of sand up the beach,
it really feels like it some days, yeah.
probably helps them, maybe.
Do we have a sense of how much this has been used in the past? I mean, is there hunting going on, was there hunting going on last year?
I mean, other than a handful of phone calls, and when I say a handful of phone calls, I'm talking 3 or 4.
Right.
That does not mean that it's not going on
Okay.
anyway, but I probably take 3 or 4 phone calls. I've only taken 1 this year.
Okay. Of someone saying, hey, there's hunting, or can we hunt, or what are the rules for hunting, or, okay.
Am I understanding correctly that there's no requirement for a landowner who has consented to have their land hunted to make any kind of public notice that they have allowed that?
Correct, they do not need to make that publicly known.
So they don't have to put a
Advertise.
sign up or something?
Well, except that we would sign off on this, but then it's just whoever they want to hunt their land. Otherwise, it would be trespassing for anyone else who went on their land to hunt.
It's just who they.
Without that owner's permission.
Because some of the issue last year, when we did provide a map, I think some people were overwhelmed with calls and just the general public wanting to come out. And I think it got to be kind of a hassle for them. So we did have some that requested we do not do that again. And so we've kind of went the way of handling it on a case-by-case basis, which is kind of the reason for the permit in place, is just to be able to do that, since some people don't want everybody to know that I'm allowing this friend, I don't need 9 more out here, and then you've got a lot of problem happening, so. It's evolved. I mean, there's days that, we get a few calls on it, there's days you'll get none, a year, and none. I don't know that geese hunting is a huge sport in this area, but there are people that do it, so.
I think this is an exclusive group of individuals between landowner and hunter, that it's a very narrow, I don't hunt in the city limits, of course, but,
Right.
Finding a place that's not public land to hunt, you've got to know somebody, get express permission to do it, and this is just dotting Ts and crossing Is, that everybody's on the same page between the landowner, the people that are going to be hunting, and the city.
So how close can they be to a park? How close can they hunt, like to a park? Was that in here? Like where people might be walking or biking or?
So if you look at, that's why I threw in the, I made a suggestion for the second or third bullet, where it talks about, and I just realized you used bullet as where it can't cross off of the authorized space. So it can't cross into public property, alley, roadway, and so they would have to make sure that their shot would not go beyond the area that they're permitted to hunt. I've also want to point out too that I would like to make a recommended change to the form. I did not tell Garrett about this, but the 200 yards, I think it should just state occupied structure and not roadway. And the reason I say that is a lot of times what, by that other bullet point, they're not able to shoot over the top of the roadway anyway, so they're protected by that. What a lot of hunters will do is they'll put their back to the roadway.
Right.
It gives them more space. Otherwise, they have to go 200 yards from the roadway, and then they have to have another 200 yards of clearance beyond that. So you're talking at least 400 yards of kind of dead space. So I was going to strike through the 200 yards within the roadway because it's covered with the other bullet point.
I guess I would just, I don't want to open a can of worms, and I understand that this has been in place for several years, unbeknownst to me, but I have concerns about public safety. Where I happen to live currently, we have heavily wooded areas on both sides of a long driveway that has several houses on it, and we also have heavily wooded areas on both sides of Bremer Avenue there. And I understand what you're saying about they're not supposed to shoot across a sidewalk or a roadway, but I have concerns about how that's enforced and just the potential for danger.
Well, at least they wouldn't be hunting geese there. That's typically an open field, so. And that's where you're going to find these hunters will be on the outskirts for those open fields. They'll have decoys bringing the geese.
So this seems to be dealing with if landowners allow other people to hunt on their property. Does this mean do landowners have the ability to hunt on their own property without this permit, or do they also need this?
They would need to request it. And the reason we have it is right now, city owner says that you cannot discharge a firearm.
Okay.
So we are giving exemption just for
Geese hunting.
For goose hunting for that exemption. A lot of cities, you can find hunting ordinances, and then what they do is they set it up by number of acres. They usually do a minimum. I know Cedar Falls, Waterloo, they all have hunting ordinances within their city code. We just don't. And so since we don't allow discharge of firearm, we're covering it with a resolution in a form.
So what happens if they don't contact the city first? And somebody reports them and you find out that they've been shooting geese without filling out the permit, or they shot the wrong bird, then what?
It's a good question. Probably start with a warning, make sure they do it right, and deal with it from there.
But then it'd be in violation of the rule about discharging firearms in city limits.
Right.
So it's important to recognize this form does not list the names of the hunters. This is the property owner. So the property owner that's going to hunt on their own property fills out this form, and it would cover them or anybody else. You don't have to name the hunters. I think it's of merit, back to Garrett's point, that there were only a handful of calls inquiring about this, not necessarily complaint-based. I don't know if we've had any complaints about this in the past.
No, there has not been, and it was pretty heavily used when we first started.
Yeah.
There was quite a few.
But my observation has been properties that would typically be eligible have been developed over those years, and so there's fewer and fewer places for this activity to happen, that, the people partaking in it has decreased as well, so.
So do we need to amend the form?
I would recommend striking the roadway portion of that, if Garrett's okay with that.
So just
So that's
within
it.
200 yards of an inhabited structure?
So the resolution doesn't include any of the language that's in the form. The administration manages the form itself, so they can manipulate that without an amendment to the resolution.
Yeah, it's just that we're being asked to vote
I know.
on it. So,
I mean, it references the form, but
If you want to make a motion to strike it and amend it, you certainly can. There's
Yeah.
nothing precluding from doing
We just
this.
didn't want to change the form after you guys saw it.
Right.
Yeah. It makes sense,
Appreciate
though.
that.
Yeah.
So I've got Councilman Birgen made the motion. Would you accept an amendment to
I would
the
accept a
form?
motion to strike the, a roadway or, a roadway or. So we have 200 yards of an inhabited structure is how it would read in the form.
You accept that amendment?
That's fine.
Okay. Further discussion on the amended motion? Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Birgen,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Vote of 6 to 0 and 1 absent, Resolution 23-166 is approved. Item 8 is Resolution 23-167, a resolution adopting updates for the City of Waverly Employee Handbook. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 23-167, adopting updates for the City of Waverly Employee Handbook. Second.
Motion by Rathe, second by Beaufort. Council discussion, or staff, I guess?
We've been working on this for quite some time. I don't know if anyone wants to make a comment or not on it, but it's been a lot of man hours, a lot of women hours, a lot of hours, period. Our prior handbook was done probably about 5 years ago almost, I think, and it's been updated slightly. But this is a complete overhaul, top to bottom. There's a lot of requirements from the feds that have changed, a lot of things we need to add, and just a lot of language in there that was not really clear. And so we didn't want to hit you with the entire thing, so we're trying to do it in 3 sections that kind of make sense. The first ones are items that we're trying to get done to start the new fiscal year with, or the new calendar year, I should say. And so that's why you've got bits and pieces, different sections of it. A summary was provided, so you can see the changes as they were. Hopefully you've had a chance to read that. So I guess we're just looking for any questions, any concerns, any issues, any items before we move forward.
No, I thought it was well-read and easy to understand.
Good.
All right. Hearing nothing further, roll call, Carla.
Kangas,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Beaufort.
Yes.
Bergen.
Yes.
Vote is 6 to 0 and 1 absent. Resolution 23-167 is approved. Item number 9 is Resolution 23-168, approving an agreement between the City of Waverly and One Source of Omaha, Nebraska, and authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement. Entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve Resolution 23-168, a resolution approving an agreement between the City of Waverly and One Source of Omaha, Nebraska, as per the pricing schedule listed in Section H, and authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement.
Second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Kangas. Council discussion?
So I'm just curious, in the hiring process, at what stage do we do background checks? And if we, so you get it down to, do we get it down to, 3 candidates and we run, here's 1, 2, and 3, first one doesn't pass a background, but what's the?
So we won't do any background checks until somebody's accepted an offer.
Okay.
So they'll sign off to give us authorization to perform a background check. They'll receive the details. At that point, they'll be able to offer up any information that they feel is necessary based on what we've provided as far as what we're checking for. We'd be looking for them to tell us anything that would be on their background, and then just depending on what we find, and depending on the role, if there's anything, say if we have somebody in the library that has a bad,
There's a lot of things we're looking for that differ by position, so.
Where are you going? Yeah, we're librarians, but.
Oh, there's a list. It's a list.
There is a list.
I'm drawing a blank.
There are certain things you wouldn't want people working with
There's
children
certain,
have.
children, yes.
Yeah, that was-
What is it? Yes, thank you, sex offender
We don't need to list the
registration.
list.
I'm sorry, there's a.
So we're using it as
description
the
of-
last, that's the last
Yes,
place
it's
before
the
we
last
do
step in the
hiring.
process.
If that ever got out of, and maybe it doesn't, but, I could just thinking of different businesses that would hire people, and it's like, maybe the first thing you should do is do a background check, just so otherwise you're spending a ton of time, then you get to, it's like, oh.
And some of the things you do, there's quick ones you can do from Iowa Courts Online. There's quick things you can do for when they fill out the application, it lists in there, have you been convicted? There's all these.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of a secondary safety net of, is this a truthful application? They have the chance to come clean, they know what's coming. And so different positions would have different backgrounds. You would look for credit checks on certain positions that may be handling cash, things like that. You may be looking for suspended licenses, all kinds of things that could pop up. We don't have too many instances of that, but I do think we'll probably run this on all current employees. I've warned them, in about 6 months, better get it in order. Just to make sure that we have what we have, and then going forward, probably the only thing I would have you discuss is minors.
Yeah.
Which
so
we have a lot of seasonals.
We won't be doing background checks on anybody under the age of 18. Just because what you can find sometimes is sealed. And we won't be able to get that information. And just the investment in the background check, a lot of time you're not going to find anything. And to answer your question, why we don't do it earlier in the process, just getting it requires a social security number, date of birth, all of that. So having a date of birth or social security number before we even go through the interview process, it just kind of opens up another can of worms as far as knowing.
And what James said,
age
that
and
makes a
then-
lot of
yeah.
sense, doing some kind of
Yeah.
quick check earlier in the hiring
Yep,
process.
so we
And the
would
cost, I mean,
withdraw an
it's not
offer
free.
if something came back that was terribly concerning, so.
Perfect.
So we probably should have been doing them earlier as well, more often, but again, as we move forward and we have things that change and regulations, we want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to fish out anything that might be happening and
this
hire
would-
good people.
I read this, I saw this, I thought I saw this. Is it 100 checks you're getting, or is it unlimited?
100 that we're
I
going
saw-
to, well, so we'll perform a check on all of our full-time employees.
What I'm asking is what one source is providing.
Yep,
I
so
think
there's a detailed, I can't, like, off the top of my head, it does
Yeah,
like
17,
background
okay.
check. They'll do credit history on select positions, so I think it'll just be directors and, like, city administrator. And then, and then after that, it's just looking for a criminal.
Name drop.
Perfect.
But this is just per check, we're paying them. It's not like a contract where we get a certain number of
Correct,
checks.
yes. Okay, sorry, I didn't, that's what you're asking. Yep.
Anything further? Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
one quick question. I assume that then this company, that I just forgot the name of, OneSource,
yep.
they accept liability for the truthfulness or credibility of the information they provide to us.
Yes, I mean, I would need to read that, but, or in the contract, but they're providing the information that has been confirmed based on what the person's been convicted of. So if there's charges out there, we don't get that information, but any conviction information we will get.
So
And they
like-
won't tell us if there's anything pending.
So someone couldn't come back to the city and say, I didn't get this job, or I got fired from a job because this showed up on my background check, but that's not actually true. If we get the information from OneSource, OneSource is accepting responsibility that that's
Yes.
accurate.
That it's accurate, yes.
Yeah, I see on the 5th page of the agreement, there's an indemnification clause there that there's a hold harmless.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. For them.
I should also point out that the pricing schedule should be listed in section I, not section H.
It's been a long week.
How would you
Only
even
for-
catch that, Brian?
So in section I, please note the pricing section that is there.
As per present section listed in section
Yes,
I. yeah.
thank you. If you need to change a resolution to note section I, please do so.
Take a look at the past today.
It's not stated in there. Is it?
It
It's in
is.
the resolution, yes.
It just says the pricing schedule on the
Oh, yeah.
resolution, the wording of
On
the
the-
resolution
On the
itself.
verbal, it was
On the
I, so
books.
it's.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's not in the resolution, so we're gonna
It's good.
go forward, but.
Sorry.
We changed
All
it.
right. Strive
All right.
Thank you for keeping an eye on that, Brian.
Yes.
Can I ask a question
I know.
before we vote?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse?
Federal Motor Carrier
Yep.
Safety Administration.
I know, what is that?
So
Like if
anybody
you-
that drives commercial motor vehicles.
So that's a
CDLs.
separate background check for alcohol-related
So when
driving
you do
offenses?
a
or-
drug or alcohol test as a commercial motor vehicle operator after an incident or random, it gets reported to this clearinghouse. And so that allows them to ping that clearinghouse to make sure you haven't had any violations. So let's say one of the snowplow drivers is moonlighting for a party bus entity on the weekend, and they have a collision, and they happen to be intoxicated. That's going to ping on the system. There's no way that they can hide that from the city of Waverly for their employment purposes.
We complete those on all of our
So
CDL
they
drivers.
get that sort of
every year.
violation, but they don't get a conviction.
Say that again, sorry.
So that's so if they get that sort of violation, but they aren't convicted of anything. So if they're convicted of anything, it's going to show up in the other background check.
But they would show that,
That would show up, yeah.
that positive test, yeah.
Both, okay.
Yeah, because they would receive a fine for that. That would go on their record.
Yep. Anything further? Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Kangas,
Yes.
Meyers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Vote is 6-0 and one absent, resolution 23-168 is approved. Thank you, Danielle. Item 10 is resolution 23-170, accepting certification filed by the finance director to the Bremer County auditor detailing for amount of new loans, advances, and indebtedness which qualify for payment from tax increment revenues of the Waverly Unified Urban Renewal Plan and the West Waverly Urban Renewal Plan. Entertain a motion.
I would move approval of Resolution 23-170, accepting certification filed by the Finance Director to the Bremer County Auditor on or before December 1st, 2023, detailing the amount of new loans, advances, and indebtedness which qualify for payment from tax increment revenues of the Waverly Unified Urban Renewal Plan and the West Waverly Urban Renewal Plan.
Second.
Motion by Kangas, second by Birgen. Council discussion.
It's our TIF report. We do it annually to demonstrate what we receive, what we will be paying. I don't know, Val, if you have any other comments on it. It's pretty straightforward. We have no choice. We would not do it if we didn't have to do it, but we have to do it.
Good to let people know what we're spending, what's.
Oh, it's in multiple
Put out.
places. This just
It
calls it out
is,
specifically
yeah.
different,
Right.
so it's.
It's another step the state wants us to.
It's
be
more redundancy,
transparent.
so
It's the Department of Redundancy Department.
it very well is, yes, sir.
Whose phone number is that at the bottom of the forms? There's no name. That's your name. Okay.
Thank God, I hope it wasn't mine.
We're finding all the details today.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Roll call, Carla.
Myers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Vote is 6-0 and one absent, resolution 23-170 is approved. Item 10A is to approve the fiscal year 2023 state urban renewal report. Entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve fiscal year 2023 state urban renewal report. Second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Kangas. Council discussion, if any. Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
It's a voice vote.
Oh, it is, you're right. Hearing no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries on the report. Item 11, first reading of ordinance 1137, amending the current tax increment financing TIF ordinance. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of the first reading of ordinance 1137, amending the current tax increment financing TIF ordinance.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Rathe. Council discussion or staff?
So this is when TIF was started, you did it by district, and you actually put your lines by streets and blocks and that kind of thing. And so you ended up with a lot of property that was included in there that may be exempt or may, exempt and then become exempt at some point. The city bought the property after it had been in TIF already. And so what happens is if there's a frozen basis for a property that's now exempt, and it had a value before, that dollar amount gets taken off of what we can collect from the TIF revenues. So we actually reduce the amount that we can collect from what we're supposed to be able to collect. So I kind of estimated by looking through the parcels, it to be about $35,000 a year, which could be used then for retiring debt, TIF debt. So it also clutters up the lists of the different regions, and so it's a lot easier to have all those things out of there, and there's no reason to have it in the TIF ordinance. They stay within the plan, the urban renewal plan, so that if we do a project that involves one of the city properties, we can still use money from that to pay for a project on that. So we keep it in the plan, but it's not in the TIF ordinance.
Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Meyers.
Yes.
Vote of 6-0 and 1 absent, the first reading of ordinance 1137 is approved. Item 12 is resolution 23-171, approving an urban renewal joint agreement between the City of Waverly and Bremer County, Iowa. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 23-171, approving an urban renewal joint agreement between the City of Waverly and Bremer County, Iowa, to allow Bremer County to establish an urban renewal area within the city limits. Second.
Motion by Rathe, second by Beaufort. Council discussion, and just to note that Bremer County Board of Supervisors, Board Member Corey Serwinski is here. If there's any.
So this is not uncommon necessarily. It has been done before, as we noted in the memo I provided you. So the county did this for Wartburg, early 2000s for a dormitory project. But again, it had to be done through the city with our approval to allow that district to occur. We have no financial obligation. Either party pays taxes, so there's no increment. It is truly just a permission to let them do a more efficient way of providing bond proceeds to fix courthouse, other things as well, versus referendum, et cetera. So it's a much more efficient way to get the same thing done. Spirit Financial has been involved all the way. They represent both of us, so it's been a good partnership to get this looked at. We're very comfortable with it. We reviewed it with them, and Dorsey and Whitney is the other bond firm you have in Iowa. We use Allers and Cooney. They provided the documentation, so it is pretty airtight, and I don't think there's any risk to the city whatsoever.
Yeah. This was, I think Maggie had brought this forward initially, didn't she?
She had a meeting with us on it.
Right.
Yeah. But
So,
it'll definitely benefit the county, and I think it's a good partnership to have.
yep.
I say we've done a lot with TIF since I've been on, but this is a new one for me. This is-
Yeah, 2004 was the last one, so.
Yep. All right. Hearing nothing further, roll call, Carla.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufort.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Meyers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Vote of 6-0 and 1 absent, resolution 23-171 is approved. Thank you, Supervisor Serwinski, for joining us. Item 13 is resolution 23-172, approving an amended development agreement for grant number 22-APRDH-059 between Waverly and Movie Guys LLC, setting forth the terms and conditions of the grant administration by correcting the name of the downtown housing grant in the agreement. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of Resolution 23-172, a resolution approving an amended development agreement for grant number 22 APRDH-059 between Waverly and Movie Guys LLC, setting forth the terms and conditions of the grant administration by correcting the name of the downtown housing grant in the agreement.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Meyers. Council discussion, if any.
So this is just simply a correction of the name. It's not a changing of entity or anything like that?
Right. What happened is that the IADA sent us a form and told us to use it, and a lot of us just kind of did that and didn't really look at what the grant name was, because at the time, we weren't sure what they were officially calling that. So it ended up being somebody else's old one. that they gave everyone to use, so I missed it. I apologize. So that's how we're getting ready to do some payouts coming up in the next month or so. So we wanted to make sure we get all the ducks in a row. Because this all goes into, the paperwork that goes into this goes into the grant the grant program, the Iowa grant. And that's how the feds will come in and review the documentation because it's a federal project. So we have to do a lot of things just to make sure that by 2032, we don't get audited by the feds on any of these projects.
When I first scanned this over, I thought it was a name change, so that's why I asked, and I kind of would have had an important question there, but I'm still going to ask it because it's still
Sure.
important. If it would have been a name change and we had benefits paid out and a name change and a project that's not complete, what would how would we handle that, and what would a penalty or anything like that be in a situation like this?
So the first requirement would be is that they go to IEDA to get a transfer of the grant. That happened with the daycare center when they bought the property next to the door. So it's possible, but it starts at IEDA with their grant, because they would have to allow them to transfer to the new owner the grant benefits. Since we're the sub-recipient in this, or we're the go-between between the IEDA and the feds, we would then would have had to correct or amend for the new owner. But that's not what happened here, so.
So it looks like in the paperwork, it referred to as a community catalyst building remediation grant, where it should have been the downtown housing grant. Okay, so that's what's changing.
And you said that we're looking at some payouts in the future?
Well, so the project has to be done by June of '24. It's going to be done, it's over half done, and so they can get the first draw. It's 2 draws, the first half and the second half. It's actually 60/40, the way it works, and so we're getting that documentation ready. That's not a simple thing either, because again, we have to do all this federal requirements of showing that we followed all the rules, and we'll just document that.
So I know you and I had a discussion a little while ago. So what has to be completed here in December coming up? Or is that?
There's nothing required to be completed. What they think they're going to get the housing done in the next month or two, because it's going faster, and frankly, it's just now building apartment units, so you're just basically drywalling and putting in cabinets and that kind of thing. The drywall's in, they're going to be painting, and then they'll be putting things in, so that'll go pretty fast. The problem is they probably won't get them occupied, because they'll won't be working downstairs, and it'll probably be pretty difficult to get people in there while they're working downstairs. There's still a lot of that front entrance that nobody likes to look at, the front of the facade. There's going to be a lot of glass that's going to come in. That's going to really look nice, but you can't put glass in when you're beating around and taking things in the inside, putting expensive glass on the outside. So
It's not a good idea.
they got to finish the inside first before they can do that last wall on the outside.
Okay.
But it's good, looking great. We had somebody from IEDA was here last week and had a great walkthrough. A lot of pictures I saw you uploaded into the grant program. Yeah.
So this is a pass-through through the feds to the state, to us, and part of the deal is the state itself did not have a good audit procedure in place. So when the panic set in, because they very well will have this looked at by the feds, because it is their money, all of us as subrecipients then had to come in and also get our things in order, and some projects from other cities involved had been done for quite some time. So if it wasn't done correctly, it's been a lot of scramble, and they hired a firm, RSM, to come in and assist with this. So when we're talking about draws, there's a certain amount of money that we have up front that we guarantee through them, but we have to also draw that down through them. And so we're trying to make sure we have enough funds drawing through us to get the grant to go through. This never should have gotten this far. The state, I'll be very honest, they dropped the ball on this. They did not have their audit procedures in place, and so we are scrambling to assist them till they can be assisted when the feds come knocking, wanting to know where'd all this money go. And so that's, in a nutshell, we might as well put it out there. You'll hear more during the budget from them. This is what caused this to happen. This is not anything we locally did or did not do. It's in response to the state needing to get their audit procedures in place.
And when I was looking through some of the DOT things that we've done in prior years, we've done a lot of those agreements before. And so we really did have them in place, we just didn't have a mechanism to find it for this particular type of project. So it's interesting now, we'll keep them together more.
And that's what's coming in right next, in this next
Yeah, same with the
resolution.
next one. yeah.
Okay. All right.
So are we, just a question, out of curiosity, you're talking about auditors and with grants. I've heard there's been a lot of issues with the auditors recently in the state in getting funds back. Have you guys had any issues with the auditors?
So if you're talking about the state auditor, he's done some different things, and there's a lot of areas where they have worked, but not really in this kind of area, because the auditors here would be the federal government that would come in and audit.
Right.
Because they want to make sure that their money is spent well. And we like to have the state do that for us, but sometimes they have these grants like this where they want the cities to do it, cities and counties to do it. So.
This will show up in our audit as well, because they pass through federal funds. So it doesn't matter if it didn't come straight from the federal government, it'll still be in our audit also as a federal grant that came through. And if it's a big enough amount in the end, which I don't know if it will be, that'll force a single audit, which is even more expensive for us to have to commit. But so that's why we're getting involved in making sure this is done correctly, because we will also have to be then looked over and audited as well.
One additional question. So June 2024, what does Movie Guys have to all satisfy to be complete on that?
So they have to be done with the project. They wouldn't get reimbursed after that date in June.
If they're not done.
But they can ask for the money up to 26, so 2026. So if they're processing, getting the money back.
So they could be late if they wanted to be.
In requesting money,
Gotcha,
in
okay.
requesting the funds. And most of them don't obviously want to do that.
Right, yeah, but there's challenges in getting stuff
So
done
it's,
right now, so.
it's pretty straightforward in this one, because it's all the upstairs work, and that was pretty easy to identify when you're talking about the flooring that was done, and the drywall that was done, and then everything else that they're putting into those units. There's a lot of work done in the basement too, and some of that's structural that really could be relevant to the housing above, but there's plenty of work that has to be done upstairs. And when you're talking about this is a $300,000 grant,
Right.
and they would have to pay up to $75,000 towards this $300,000, and then they can get that back, because they don't want anybody just getting all grants. They want to have some money in the game, so each grant has that requirement, so.
I just have to chuckle that this is $300,000 the feds are auditing, yet we hear about hundreds of millions that go to various other programs that we have no idea where it went.
They expect
Don't
it-
seem to be
it's
worried
right.
about that, but
It's the federal
$300,000,
audit.
we gotta be right on top of.
Yep.
We can't classify this as COVID or green energy or Ukraine or.
You're gonna get censored in a moment.
Okay.
With that. Anything further?
No, sir.
All right, roll call, Carla.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Vote is 6-0 and 1 absent. Resolution 23-172 is approved. Item 14 is Resolution 23-173, approving the Title VI non-discrimination agreement between the Iowa Department of Transportation and the City of Waverly, Iowa, and the United States Department of Transportation, USDOT. Standard Title VI non-discrimination assurances, DOT Order Number 1050.2A. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of Resolution 23-173, approving the Title VI non-discrimination agreement between the Iowa Department of Transportation and the City of Waverly, Iowa, and the United States Department of Transportation, USDOT, Standard Title VI non-discrimination assurances, DOT Order Number 1050.2A.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Meyers. Council discussion.
So I'll jump in here on this one too, because this was actually done 3 years ago, and they just require you to do it every 3 years when they come and do a review. So we're just replacing the one that was done in 2020.
Hearing nothing further, roll call, Carla.
Birgen.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Vote of 6-0 and one absent, resolution 23-173 is approved. Item 15 is the fiscal year 2025 preliminary budget discussion. Hand this over to James.
Yes, sir. So each fall, we like to come to you with kind of an idea of what we're facing, whether it's legislation or issues we're seeing in different parts of the budget, and try to answer any questions you have or take any guidance you might want to provide as we move forward. Budget documents are out. Staff is working on them right now. We will get them back in early December. And at the end of this, I'll have Val kind of walk you through the calendar of where we're going to be from the start to the end. So I'll jump right into it. As you recall, last year, when our audit came, we had some funds renamed, reallocated, and that kind of took a little bit of our fund balance in a sense. We came through that just fine. We met with Moody's. We're actually almost upgraded. So they have a different methodology how they're looking at things, since that was our biggest worry at the time. That fund balance will remain intact. It's in good shape, but it's not substantial to where we would utilize that for one-time capital, things we may have done in past years. So knowing that, we're already kind of a little short going in, and we're cognizant of that. The other large issue that we've talked about, and we'll reiterate it again for anybody listening, was the legislative passing of House File 718, as it's infamously known now. It does a significant change to the way that we function as a city going forward through assessments, limitations of growth, consolidation of levies, and so forth. So I'll take just a few minutes to walk you through kind of the nuts and bolts of what that looks like. Levy consolidation is a big one. There are about 20 different levies that cities can use for multiple things, whether it is emergency management levy, which we particularly don't do, about half do, half don't. We have a levy to help take care of the Civic Center, it's 13.5 cents. And the list goes on, there's about 20 of them. So that levy will be added to the 810, which is our general fund levy. For anybody watching, it's $8.10 per thousand of taxable valuation. So that is the core of what we provide for taxes. So it's, your rate's $8.10 at a minimum. All these are extra. So that levy, and we are building fiscal 25 now, fiscal 29, that levy will go away, the 13.5 cents. That's 65,000 roughly in today's dollars that we will have to now absorb into the 810 levy that we currently have. The goal is to get most cities back to 810, and that's it. And then the other funds that we'll talk about briefly. So in fiscal 29, all of those voted levies, all 20 of those, they disappear, and the money is just forfeited, and now you will now cover it within your 810 levy. And so we do have a little time, and again, we were lucky we only have the one. Some of my peers have multiple of those for a lot of different things, and it's gonna be substantial. So that was one of the items, the levy consolidation. The growth rate cap is one of the more interesting ones that we've kind of talked briefly about too. So as we move forward, and this is gonna hit Val quite a bit, there's gonna be new documentation, new forms to fill out, new hearings to have. There'll be paperwork that'll come to us showing what our growth is and our valuation, our assessments, our non-TIF taxable valuation. It's a lot to spit out. So under this plan, there's 3 different tiers, depending on where you hit, it depends on what happens to you. So if we're a city that grows just under 3, then you're penalty free, so to speak. You will be able to use all that growth up to 2.99%. Most years, we're right at that point, a little less, a little more. Your bigger cities obviously grow a little bigger, a little faster. So if you're at 3% to 5.99, you will have a 2% reduction on your growth. So if you're at 5.99, you will go down to 3.99 now. That's what will be allowed for you to utilize of what you grew. If you usually grow greater than 6%, you have a 3% reduction in your growth now. So the cities that grow at 8, 10, 12%, they will now grow at 5, 7, 9% instead. So you'll be reducing the amount of growth you can have also.
Just clarification, if you're at, say, 3.1%, so you're kind of, do you get cut down to?
2.1%.
But if you're at 2.9, or
Yeah.
do you just get cut down to 2.9, or
So if you're at 2.99, you get all the money you have, that's your
Right.
goal,
But
aim
if-
for 2.99.
But if you're 3.1,
If you're at 3, you go down to 1. So that .01, I have no idea how the math worked for them, but this is what they come up with.
it's not like marginal or,
No.
so it's not like everyone from 3 to 5 is stuck
Prorated,
at 3.
You go down 2 from wherever you ended on that.
So the difference between a 2.9 or 3.1 is like catastrophic.
It's pretty big, yeah. So if you're gonna aim, hit 2.9 and call it, or else get up above 6. So again, this is stuff that we've talked about. We don't know where it came from or how it was determined. It proportionally doesn't make sense in how that occurs, but there must be a mechanism somewhere. I'm sure it'll come out. Sure we'll be told all things that are causing this. But that's one of the bigger issues that we're gonna have. The rollback was the more severe piece of it that we'll talk about in a minute, but that's what'll play into this part of it then, the growth rate reduction. Homestead military credits, normally you'll see a certain amount, the state was paying those, that doesn't happen anymore either. That is now seen as a reduction in valuation taxable for us as well. So the state will not cover the increase in homestead or the military. It will come off of the value that's allowed to be taxed also. So that'll reduce our ability to tax against. One of the biggest ones for us is we were looking to do a number of big amenities, whether it be the pool, clubhouse, things of that nature, is the referendum. There were a number of dates throughout the year. You could hold a referendum, have a special election to get approval from the public to move forward with the bond. That has now been limited to 1 day a year, and it is the Tuesday of election day. And that's it. So if it fails, you wait another year and you try again. And so that really slowed down a lot of the processes we were looking at. We had planned out some different dates for different referendums, how we would move forward with these amenities. Now you have to start to decide, next November, is the pool ready to be put on there? Is the clubhouse, do you do them both? You can't combine them, that's not legal, but you can put both of them on separately. What do you do with that? And so that's something else we're gonna have to figure out the next year as we hopefully start to get some funds located for doing some rendering, so people see what we're looking at, talking about, as we try to move forward with that. So that may not be a huge issue for a lot of cities, but for us in Waverly, that was kind of a big one, because we do need referendums to move forward on some of these projects. The golf maintenance building is another one that, because it's specifically for golf, which is called out separate in the code, that also has to have a referendum now, just to rebuild the maintenance building. So the good thing they did do was on your general corporate purpose, so the 700,000 we always talk about, we can borrow without referendum. That was increased 30%, so it's up to 910,000 now. So that does help some, but for the projects we're looking at, it really doesn't help enough. Maybe the maintenance building, we could find additional funds to offset the balance. All these things we have to get redone now. It's about a year or so ago is the last time we really looked at some costing and when the price of materials was very, very high. So we're gonna try and get a hold of some of those individuals we're working with to see what does it look like now. Does that give us room to do it or not? All this on top of the time we're being capped on our growth, we're losing some of our levies. So it makes it a very, very difficult budget already. And then the rollback came in a little while ago. And as we talked about, you know, the rollback is determined by Department of Revenue. It's average across the state as to what they think taxes, the taxable amount should be based on a formula they have. It's tied to agriculture, blah, blah, blah. There's a book I can get you to read it. In a nutshell, we were at about 54 point something in rollback for residential. And as we've talked in past years, 3/4 of the value of our city is residential, maybe even a little higher depending on the year. And normally you would see, let's say 54 would go to 54.5 or 53.2 or something of that nature. They dropped it to 46. So as a homeowner, that's good news. As a city, that's horrible news, because that is that much less money that we take in on the same tax rate that we would have to operate off of. So people say, but just raise the tax rate. Well, 810 is 810. You can't raise the tax rate. The other funds that we levy against are our insurance, our property and liability insurance. So they allow us to have a fund for that. But what that cost is, it is. We can't put other things in that fund, so that amount is set. We have a benefits levy for health insurance, pensions, things like that. But once that's in there and the amount is in there, that's it. You can't add things to it. That's done as well. The only other item we have left is debt, which again is capped in other areas. So as you see the state evolve through these processes in the name of tax savings, it is going to box us in more and more and more with our ability to generate revenue. And it's not just us, counties are gonna face it, some may say worse, because the agricultural piece of it dropped from 90-some% to 70-some%. Massive drop in valuation for taxes there. So the reason this happened is there is an assumption there will be a huge growth in taxable valuations or valuations in general prior to the rollback. And the 20% you've heard, certain homes, et cetera, they're assuming it'll jump up that much, and that's why they put the rollback so low, so offset that. The average, I think we talked about, Val and I were discussing, I think League of Cities has put out, you will need to grow 17% to get back to zero. Our growth last year as a total was negative 0.3 once they corrected the rollback. 17%, well, I take it back, it'd have to be 20, because they're gonna take 3 off of that. So 20%, you lose your 3, we get to 17%. I think that gets us even with what the rollback has now done with our ability to collect taxes.
So, word that to me a different way
You
here.
bet.
So if we stay flat, we're collecting 17% less in revenue?
So
Is that be another way to think about that?
if you have a $100,000 house and you're taxing 56,000 of it, you're now gonna get taxing 46,000 of it at the same rate. Calculate it's like $140-$150 per 100,000 of every house in the city. And that adds up a lot when you start looking at how many we're talking about, how many hundreds of millions of value that is throughout the area. It's a lot of money that has just been removed unless you can raise the rate or you have enough valuation to raise it enough to offset it. So that's the formula. You know, we set our expenditures, there is a valuation, we set a rate against the valuation and get the expenditures. That's how it's always worked. When the expenditures go up quite a bit, the rate can go down. We don't need as much rate to generate the same money. The problem is now we can't raise it if we want to, because it simply doesn't, we don't have that mechanism in place. And we never really could. The other side of it, as we talked earlier, fund balance isn't there then for the one-offs if we run a little over, things of that nature. So we're kind of boxing a corner a little bit with some of the funding that we're looking at, some of the financials we're trying to get our hands on. So, you know, while it was key to get the vote through for local option sales tax, get that language through, that'll help some, but that'll help debt potentially. It's not gonna help operations. And as everybody knows, and staff has heard me say it already, our largest part of our operations is staff. So if there's substantial reductions to be made, we can chop away at our operating budgets. They're not that large to start with. We can delay equipment, which we've already done for years now. But in the end, it's not gonna make any difference. It's not gonna make a big enough difference for us to withstand this for multiple years going forward. The only true reduction in it, and you can cover your ears, is staff. And that's where we'll have to look at this budget is, are there staff that we can do without? Are there services we're getting that can be outsourced, that can be cheaper done? All these things that we look at in a sense, we will definitely have to look at now and try to push and see what we can do. My opinion is this is not the worst year, because years going forward, you will not have the substantial jump in assessments to offset some of this. You will not have, it's as if you're collecting $5 million normally, and that's just a random number, please don't quote me on that. And all of a sudden now you're collecting 4. You're gonna keep collecting 4 going forward. There is no jumping back to 5. And so it has reset where this is. 2009 and 2010 was the last time the rollback was this low in the 40s. So it's been 13, 14 years since it's been this low at the time. And then it kept growing gradually, now it just drops. And this is all again in reaction to the assumption there will be a huge jump in house pricing. And there has been to some, I don't know that all. And so January, first week of January, we'll have those numbers. And we'll be able to figure out, based on our expenses, what we're looking at, what's the rate look like, because we have a limit. And then what does that do to us? What are we short? What are we sitting at? How do we come to you with a plan as to what we're gonna do? So the hard part of it is there's only a certain portion of the city and the government that's actually taxable. A large portion of it is driven by fees. And so it doesn't affect the tax rate anyway. Now, we will also look for efficiencies in all funds, not just taxable, because fair is fair, but it will be a huge challenge. And so some of the things, and we'll stop here before we get to the list of things we're gonna be trying to look at. Any questions, any comments, any clarification you need right now as to kind of where we're sitting or what we're looking at?
I think it's important to realize that what you're talking about is the 810 levy primarily with this. And this is, the 810 levy is the general operations of the city. That's what's really being boxed in. All of the additional things, we look back on projects that people may not have agreed with and that kind of stuff and want to pinpoint or try to blame that, well, if we wouldn't have done that, we wouldn't be in this situation. That's not accurate. This is the day-to-day operations. This is, your police department. This is, operating any of the non-franchise operations, everything that Justin does out of his shop.
That's all fee driven, so we're talking.
Well,
things like
I mean,
this.
the base
You're
stuff.
talking police, fire, ambulance, library, parks.
Yep.
And this building administration.
Right.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. We're
That's
not
where the
talking
reductions have
water,
to
sewer,
come. We're
trash.
Making significant reductions.
Right.
Water, sewer, solid waste, that's all
That's
fee
different.
driven.
Right.
Some things come from local option, that helps as well. But in the end, those are the areas that it hits.
Right.
Police, fire, ambulance, parks and rec, library, admin. That's what you've got to deal with. That's what's gonna make a difference in people's taxes that we're talking about, and that's where the reductions will have to come. If you're gonna do that, the rest, it's good to look at it, but it will not have the impact people think it will.
Right.
And that's a difficulty in this, so some of the things we're gonna try and still accomplish, because we still have to keep pushing forward somehow, is, as you said, staff is a large dollar amount for this. We've got the building right next to us. We were kind of sitting on that, the old water building, thinking, okay, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Well, where the hydros have come out, there's holes there. The water is still coming through, and our fear is if that fails, if the gates go, you'll drain the upper part of the river down to maybe 18 inches or something like that. It'll just go, because it's gonna just go right around the dam, because it's still hooked onto that. We have to find a solution to that somehow, and probably soon. And that's one of those things that, I don't know what that is right now. It's expensive, it's all I can tell you. It's a lot of money to fix that, or get that sealed up, so it's not coming through. So that's a big one we just kind of started looking at recently, as to what if. But the more common ones we've talked about is rail trail bridges. We still have a couple more that are under travel restrictions on them, so that people can't drive certain pieces of equipment. I think they're getting to where we can't take our mowers across them, so you have stretches of the trail that are getting a little shaggy, because we can't get to it. And that's part of the issue. We're wanting to still keep going forward and try and get those bridges replaced as we can, one at a time, two at a time. The first one will go this spring, Baskins Creek, so that'll be a good addition to get done. As we talked about, we want to get some kind of renderings or something done for the pool, for the clubhouse, for Memorial Park in general. What does that look like? When do we start looking at demolition of buildings? How soon does that happen? All that stuff is something we're going to try and figure out. We were wanting to look at a finance system. We're going through payroll, time and attendance, going through the growing pains of that right now. That would tie into a better system. Next year, the one we currently have, they're building a different one. The support really hasn't been there for this one. It's been a real challenge to continue to operate in it. And so we do need to look at possibly switching that out at some point in time. Our health insurance, we've been pretty flat for the last 4 years. We've been able to hold that. This year it will not be held. We're looking anywhere from a 7 to 9% increase, which there's not much you can do about that.
So on that point, so if you're capped at 2 or 3 or whatever, and you're at 7, you got that inflationary spiral, yeah.
What do you do? And if you have certain costs that go up 2, 3, 4% by contract, what do? You're zero, you're capped. These are the difficulties of what we're gonna face and try and work out for you come January 20th. Whoops, stole your thunder, sorry about, January 20th, I'll let her finish that in a minute.
So in a sense, the state's tightening down on cities and inflation's gonna drive it.
Yeah, we're getting it from both sides.
Yeah.
That's gonna be tough. Counties do. Counties have a 350 general fund, and then from the basic, they have an unlimited supplemental, but it's limited by what goes in it. So they're in the same boat, and they have a huge agricultural piece of it that took a massive hit. We'll see how that factors in, and if the assessments are high enough there too. So it's not just us, but they got their own problems, we got our problems. So we're talking about tonight is the city. So as I said, Trailblazers Health Insurance, 39th Street up towards the county fair. We're looking to maybe start looking at some engineering on that. That road's not gonna take a lot more. It's a seal coated road. At some point, that's gonna have to get looked at, if not done. We would wanna partner with the county. We need to talk to them. Wish Corey was still here, actually. Would they take their share then out of the city limits all the way up to, like, say, Bremer Road, and then box that in, and have a nice farm to market road coming down so people can get to nutrient, et cetera. And so that's gonna be seeing a lot more traffic here in the near future, and again, it's not in the best shape now, so that's something we will have to plan for, whether it's this year, next year. We have a whole list of equipment. Equipment is expensive, big equipment, whether it be recycling trucks or our tandem axles, or plow truck. I mean, all this stuff is coming due. It's, Mark and Mark can do so much to keep these things running and do a great job of keeping them going, but at some point, they can't do much more with it. It's gotta get replaced. And some of these are anywhere from 1 to 2 to 4 years out, depending on how custom it has to be. So that's the other problem we're kind of running into, is when do we start ordering equipment? Because if we do it in the budget, it'll never get here by the time the year's over. It'll be the next fiscal year, and how do we budget for that? So all things we're kind of working through. Purchasing has been difficult too. The other thing we are looking at, and Justin's kind of brought this up, and I think it's a great idea we're going to look into, is fuel is not cheap either. And we run through a lot of it, whether it's trucks, plows, you name it, we run through quite a bit of it. We've been talking about for the last year or so, maybe getting our own fuel barrels so we can buy in bulk and have our own system of buying instead of having to go straight to the market. I don't know if you want to comment briefly on what the average savings per gallon might be, or kind of what that process would look like.
Basically, just your tanks are large enough so you can not play the market actually, but just watch the market and plan when you've got to purchase. So you buy anywhere from 7,200 to 7,700 gallon loads, and you have a 12,000 gallon tank, so you have a little bit of buffer. You're looking at, don't quote me on the number, but anywhere from 30 to 50 cents a gallon savings on this fuel. The county just actually just put a system in last year, and they had 1 year of operation, and they had really good success.
So we're kind of looking at that same possibility. I think the payback is much faster than you think it would be when you look at the cost reduction that would occur.
Would that be something we could possibly even partner with the school district with their buses?
I don't know. I don't know if we'd have the capacity. I mean, we could certainly look at it. It would be out at the public works site, so it'd be close to their bus barn. It would be
within that area, yeah.
That's something we could look at. Like I said, it'll be a couple different tanks for diesel and gas and what we need, but it would be all of our parks equipment, it'd be our mowers, it could be everything would run through there instead.
How big are those tanks, Justin? 12?
What we're looking at is like a 12,000 gallon tank. County had 16,000 gallon, I believe, diesel, and I think 12,000 gas.
So we're just trying to find another way to try and bring down our costs, get some efficiencies. If fuel's out there, it's expensive. It's a good size line item for us. Some of those monthly bills come in and, oh my God, it's a lot of money for fuel. But you have to have it. So it's something else we're just trying to find a way to get a little bit better. And probably the last one I'll bring up, I know you all enjoy this, is you have to take a hard look at speed cameras. It's something we've talked about, we've discussed, but a decision was never made. So during budget, we'll bring it up, we'll look at it, we just need a yes or no. Are we in or are we out? While safety was always our first and foremost reason for even looking at them, the revenue would not hurt either. So we'll still focus on safety completely depending on how it looks, but that's something else that we do have lingering ahead on the list of things that we probably have to figure out. As far as our current projects, everything is in process. The only one that isn't, I wish Rod was here, is we have not started any of the stoplight work that he had discussed or had talked about. We put it in the budget out by the ball diamonds to look at possibly putting in some kind of stoplight system. At some point, we'll discuss that as well with budget to make sure that we still want to go forward with that. When the speed study was done and it really showed no actual speed issue out there, it made me wonder, do we need to spend $150,000 or more on lights in that spot? So again, I don't need an answer now, but I mean, that's something that we've been working through everything else, whether it's the water projects to everything else we had listed, trying to get everything in. And so that's something else we want to talk about. And we'll have a little better idea of where everything sits at that point in time. But that's just kind of a list of the challenges that we're looking at. This is just the big stuff. It's not even regular equipment and other things that we're having to deal with and things that we're trying to get our hands on. But yeah, that's the best I can tell you budget-wise. I'll have Val kind of walk through the calendar now if she would, and then we'll take any kind of questions that you might have concerning that.
Okay. Another change that the House File 718 created was a change to the budget timeframe and process. It now needs to get certified by April 30th instead of March 31st, but instead of, we would think it gained us some days, it actually is still hindering us because they added in a mailing, it's called a truth and taxation statement that the county auditor has to do. And the county auditor is required to mail this statement to all the citizens by March 20th. And in order for them to do that, the city has to file budget statements to the Department of Management by March 15th at the latest. Department of Management actually would like to have it by March 5th, but for sure you have to have it by the 15th. And this statement is basically going to be the city's budget. Like, we no longer have to do the maximum levy resolution. They took that away, but at least with that resolution, it didn't have all the levies, it didn't have the debts, but this statement here is going to have everything. It's going to be our budget. So once we submit that into Department of Management by March 15th, it's basically we're saying this is our budget. We can't go any higher than that. The only thing we can do is go less than that. So once that gets sent in, then, like I said, the county auditor has to get that mailed out by the 20th. There is also with this statement, a national public hearing you have to have and a meeting, and this meeting has to be separate from any other meeting. So we are looking at having that on March 25th, that allow people to have the time to receive the mailing. And if council would agree, we probably look at having it on the study session meeting of March 25th at 6 or 6:30 p.m. So we open that meeting and then have that statement, that public hearing go on, and then close that meeting. And then we could go into our study session that evening. Then due to like publication restrictions, the budget adoption hearing will then be taking place on April 15th in order for us to make it for the April 30th deadline. So with all those being said, there's a lot of rush at the end. So we are looking at having the first budget work session on January 20th and then the second one on February 3rd to give us some time at the front end to kind of try to get to all these requirements and these, what we need to do on the back end. So, any questions on that?
So we're actually sooner than we would have been normally. Here we are thinking end of April, this is good. It's not good. It's the backing up. It's actually earlier a week than we would have normally done this, to make sure we get a secondary meeting in as well, because I think there's gonna be a lot of challenges we just talked about. And if we're not completely finished, we'll finish it in the 3rd, but we're gonna be pushing to get this information in 1st of January, and then we have basically a couple weeks to get this to you so you can review it for the meeting. It's not a whole lot of time with considering what this is gonna look like to get this done. And so we'll be hammering through that. I expect the 20th to be a very long meeting, and I can see the February 3rd one being just as long, depending on how this comes out. So that's kind of where we are in a nutshell, I guess. I don't know if you have any questions, concerns, comments. We'll try and answer all we can, so.
Valuations will be coming out early January.
It's gotta be by the 1st by law, so
Right.
we'll expect
It'll
them
be
on
in
the
your
31st,
hands.
the 1st.
So that's one piece that you don't have today, no matter what you do, so.
So a lot of it's speculation, and at this point, I don't even wanna try and speculate anymore. It makes me sick every time I do it. Because there is no good solution, there's no good answer right now. There's just nothing good about this entire process for us going forward in most cities out there. We at least were growing. If you're not, this is even that much worse. Or if you're a city that's very small and has a budget capacity or a borrowing capacity of $40,000, what are you gonna do? You can't even buy a patrol car with that. Those are the problems I think others are gonna worry about. That's their problem. We have plenty of our own as we continue to work through all this. So it's a good list. We'd like to be able to take out some of it, but you know, again, we're trying to be mindful of our debt. You know, at one point we discussed earlier, we were pushing our 80% limit. We're in the low 50s now. If we have some issues that come through, we might hit in the 60s is all. So I mean, I think we're in good shape from that standpoint. It's everything else now that's the problem. So we got that fixed. Now it's, can we even do the projects at all? So we'll work through it, but again, questions, comments?
I'm having trouble wrapping my head around what the state's objective was.
That's a hole with no bottom. I can't tell you
Is it
what that
lowering
is.
taxes? I mean, lowering property taxes?
That's the claim, that it's gonna lower so many 100 million in property taxes. Someday it might, when you box cities and counties into, like, can't raise levies, can't raise rates, but we're already kind of there. You have the 810, you have, as I said, the things that we can cost out, go into their separate levy, that's it. The levy is what it is. There is no lowering or raising it. That's what it is. You don't cheat the system and hope to gain insurance, say, well, it's gonna be 9, let's only do 4, let's hope. That's a bad idea, because you only have so many balances in those funds too. So we're boxed in. I don't know what the end result is. It'll be projects that don't get done. It'll be amenities we can't do. It'll be increased borrowing. I'll guarantee you that. Everything operational will have to go just to the pure operations. You'll start to see more items like, whether it's patrol cars or trucks, or you'll see those go into the debt market as part of bonds anymore, which we've not done. You'll see that more and more and more, because there is no other alternative to get equipment that's breaking down and to have that get done, or maintenance of buildings. You'll borrow for whatever you can, and at some, I don't know what the
borrowing rates are high, so all of a sudden you've got a
Exactly.
high expense for nothing.
inflation and interest rates. I mean, I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
I guess
You'd have to ask them
that's what
the
I'm
result
struggling
is.
with, is all I can see is they must have been trying to make it so cities can't grow. And it's hard for me
cap
to
growth.
believe that that was really the objective. Do we really want our state as a whole to stop growing?
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know who sponsored it. I don't know the end result of it. We talked to as many people as we could at state level, but we didn't get a lot of ears to listen. We really don't know what the end result is. We just know what we're facing now with the legislation that's out there. And so we'll do the best we can within it, and there's the decisions you'll have to make as to what do we do, what do we not do, what can we do, what can't we do we borrow, do we not? It's the same as every year, it's just a lot more difficult this time. It's a lot more riding on it because there's limited resources and funds that we can do. And so, but I don't have a good answer for the backing of it, the reasoning. We've met at conferences, we don't really know. I know the tax relief is brought up every year, this is the reason for that. Next year, the discussion's already turning to TIF and local option sales tax again. And so I don't know what that's gonna look like. So that's what I mean, this may not even be the worst year yet, because more things may come down the pipe eventually. So we plan ahead all we can, but this is the kind of stuff you can't plan for. You can't possibly see this coming 3-4 years ago. We're in great shape otherwise, but you know, we'll be limited this year somewhat. But we'll bring you a plan. It may not be a great one, but it'll be a plan at least. So any other questions? I don't want to take up too much time tonight with this.
Well, the good result is it will forces cities to operate tight.
Yep.
And if it's for a short amount of time, that can be a good thing. I think they're gonna have to address this in a couple of years, but we'll see what happens.
I think it'll be difficult for a lot of them, and I think when the growth starts to go from some of the larger areas that grow at a much, much faster rate, you know, if you're growing at 22%, 19 isn't really gonna hurt you that much. If you're not growing much at all, you're still gonna get what you're gonna get up till 3%. It's where we sit in cities our size that have a decent growth pattern in the middle that are gonna get harmed by this, I think, more, because we need that growth to offset our costs as we continue to provide amenities. If that growth is now capped and limited, we can't provide those amenities. We can't continue to be the city we wanna be to attract people to be here, and I think that's where the real problem is gonna lie. It's in that second tier, that middle area. Cities that fall into that, I think, are really gonna struggle, because by percentage, it's a lot more of a hit to lose a couple percent on 5 or 6 versus 3% on 20. It's really not the same, and so it's not gonna accomplish what they think it was gonna accomplish. It'll just make it much more difficult for cities our size and smaller, unfortunately. But time will tell, so,
All right. Thank you, sir.
you're welcome.
Move forward into our reports from boards and commissions. I have one from Planning and Zoning Commission minutes of October 5th, 23. Item 2 is Waverly Law Enforcement Board minutes of October 10th, 23. Item 3 is Waverly Airport Commission minutes of October 12th of 23. Item 4 is the monthly financial report of October 31st, 23. And item 5 is the City of Waverly State Annual Financial Report for fiscal year ending 2023. All received into the record. And we have some staff updates, Mr. Bronner.
We do have a few, sir.
With the holiday, Thanksgiving coming up, just a reminder, garbage pickup will be Wednesday for Thursday's route, and then Friday's route will be Monday, the 27th. And then yard waste site is still open through December 2nd. So if you guys got anything else, get out there, you better hurry up.
I think it's all we have tonight, sir.
All right, sounds good. Council comments? Ms. Meyers?
I just wanted to express appreciation of the new wayfinding signs around town. They look great. I think they're helpful.
All right, Mr. Birgen?
Congratulations to Wartburg College for winning their first round football matchup against Illinois College. They'll be playing again in town this weekend against Whitworth University out of Washington State. So let's hope we kind of can provide some nice Iowa welcome for them. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and travel safe for those of you who are traveling this holiday season.
Perfect. So if you're not shopping locally on Saturday, you can go to the game.
Well, and I think we also need to appreciate the number of visitors that Wartburg College brings to our community who are visiting our restaurants and staying in our hotels. So kind
Absolutely.
of remembering that, it's kind of nice having a reason for people to come to Waverly.
Exactly. Mr. Schneider?
I don't have anything other than, we have a lot to be thankful for living in Waverly. And, one thing just in the budget, operating responsibly going into this is going to be a huge help. And there's, I think you'll visibly be able to see it in certain cities if it's multiple years where this city was, well, you can already see cities that don't operate responsibly. So, but anyway, we have a lot to be thankful just for where we live. So that's all.
Excellent. Ms. Rathe?
Yeah, I'll just add to what Matt said. I think, our department heads typically go into our budget discussions already thinking lean, and so that's going to pay off this year. And looking at other places in the world and the violence and the tragic things that are happening, we are pretty lucky to be where we are.
Absolutely. Ms. Beaufort?
Absolutely, I agree. Definitely thankful for living here in Waverly and being able to raise my family here in Waverly. I will not be in Waverly over Thanksgiving. And just a little note that I will not be here on Monday either. If I am, I'm going to be very late because of middle school girls wrestling. So it's exciting new thing. So
Good deal. Mr. Kangas?
This is our first council meeting since the election, so I want to thank everybody in the city that got involved with the election. Thank you for supporting the local option sales tax, but also for getting involved with school and city elections as far as that. Nice turnout. I mean, off-year elections aren't always huge, but still a nice turnout within the city for that. Also a reminder, Saturday is Small Business Saturday, so shop locally. Go ahead and do that Friday too, that's fine. I don't think they'll mind if you come down on Friday either. But yeah, support our local businesses, both downtown and on the western side of Reamer Avenue as well, and some other businesses locally as well.
Excellent. Just piggybacking off of, being thankful for different things, and to Ann's point, as far as living where we do, and thankful for our men and women in the military and what they provide for us. As far as election-based go, I do thank everybody that turned out to vote. I'm looking forward to and thankful that we're going to, as we transition into next year, and Mayor-elect Anderson is here tonight, I look forward to a very congenial transition of this seat to his direction and his leadership. So we're working through that. So I really look forward to having a seamless transition as much as possible anyway. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Actually, to enter into executive session. Item 1 there, to discuss collective bargaining strategy for upcoming city unit and public safety unit negotiations as provided by section 20.17, subsection 3 of the Code of Iowa.
Need a motion to
Yes.
move into executive, motion to move to go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining strategy for upcoming city unit, public safety unit negotiations as provided by section 20.17, subsection 3 of the Code of Iowa.
Second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Birgen. Roll call, Carla.
Kangas.
Yes.
Meyers.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, as we enter into executive session.
Okay. Thank you.